What's up everyone, Beast Mode back here with another video. Today I wanted to quickly cover one of my replays from Edison World Championship that was this past weekend. Maybe talk a little bit about some of my deck choices and what I think about the meta currently. Quickly wanted to show off this Edison monthly tournament that we've been having here in Massachusetts. Between 20, 30 players. I actually haven't been able to attend the last few, but hopefully I'll be able to make it out next month. So quick little flyer here. If you're in the area, it's not like super crazy pricing, but it is a way to get to play some paper Edison against some of the better players in the area. Dan Rose, he pretty much comes to all these monthlies. He won Ultimate Time Wizard, Niagara, and just topped the last one. He plays, I play there. Not that I'm any good anymore, but there's a few of us that are pretty good there. Meta deck, so it's pretty competitive, and pricing is pretty good. So if you guys are in the area, definitely suggest checking it out. So that's number one. Number two, this is the deck I played this past weekend. Similar to all the other builds I play, I know there's just a few of us who are playing offering our zombie at this time. I wanted to quickly shout out Oliver, who I don't know their Discord name or their dueling book name, but they were on offering zombies and actually almost top 16. I think they ended up finishing 5-2, so close. I did not have a very good weekend. I actually have not been playing a whole lot of Edison. The last Edison I actually really played was back in December for Edison Worlds, so I played a whole 7 rounds of Edison, and I haven't played since. So I decided we'll do a quick tournament report because I know a lot of players like that. I remember the old school Pojo days where you'd write out your tournament report. Now we just make a video. But so about 2 days before, 3 days before, I decided, you know what? I don't have a whole lot going on this weekend. I'm going to try to play in the tournament. And that was probably not a good idea. So I quickly hop on to the Discord, War League Discord, and I see very quickly that everybody's playing the Gigavice plant deck. I don't know anything about it. I know I did see it briefly at Edison Worlds. ProStorm was playing it, but it's not like the version it is now. And first thing I do is go to my buddy JG and say, what do we got to do here? Because he plays pretty regularly, and I get a lot of film from him, and he tests a lot of cards. So he does a lot of the testing for me, which shout out to him because he pretty much tells me like, nope, this is no good. Don't play that, or you need to be on this or that. So he kind of really is able to streamline, and I'm able to take a lot of shortcuts in terms of like deck building and choices because he kind of does that for me. So anyway, I'm out of practice, number one. Number two, since I've left the game for the past 2 months, there has been a new plant deck and a new frog deck, I guess, which is like continuous. Anything that's toxic in this format and anything that's like utterly broken is going to revolve around frogs, like it has been. Because they're just like, Substitute is just an unfair card in Edison. It's like, should not even be, if you read that card, it does not make sense in the time era that it is, 2010. So anyway, so now I have to learn a new fish deck. I have to learn a new plant deck. I have to relearn a lot of the combos of this deck because this is a deck that you need to have a lot of repetition with because every game is different. That's why I like this deck because it's complicated, but that's probably too complicated for me. But it's not that it's just complicated. It's because the games don't really get boring because they're usually really different. Now there are some straightforward streamlined combos, but generally you have to adapt based on what's going on in the field and what you've used and whatnot. So I have to kind of practice and learn decks, and I have about 2 to 3 days to do this. So not much time. It's not setting ourselves up for success. So quick testing session, we come to find out that Wing Blast is just really good right now because of the fact that it can stop the plant combo deck like right in its tracks. Literally, if you have Wing Blast set and they go Gigavice Supervise, you can just pop the Gigaplant back on top of the deck. Supervise usually fizzles if it's early. That's what you hope. And now they're dead drawing the Gigaplant generally because like you have to tribute that out. So this card's like really strong against that. Now, obviously, if they have Titanium, then it sucks. But like if they have Titanium, you're probably losing the game anyway. So that was one reason why we went back to Wind Blast in the main. Generally, I've kind of stayed away from this card. At anything more than 1 is probably not ideal, just because there's not enough discards. Just the Ill Blood and the Mizuki and Plague, really. So it's not like an ideal situation, but 1 I think is right. We also chose to go with Dark Bribe, mainly because of the fact that Trune's running around with that deck. And you need to have some way of protecting yourself because we don't play Gores. Also, it's generally good into Blackwing because it can negate just about anything that they're going to try to hit you with. Icarus, Oppression, And there has been a lot of, I know the Italian players have been playing this card at more than one in offering builds over the past year or two. So it's not that it doesn't work. It's just not a card that I like to play because of the fact that it literally says your opponent draws one card, and that's like a straight -1. And as you guys know, it is difficult to get a +1 in this format without working for it. And just handing a +1 is generally not a good idea. So you have to be very selective with this card. You just don't want to be like flipping it over to stop a bottomless if it's not like going to change the outcome of that turn, or if it's not going to be for game. So we chose one of these. Also, it's not terrible against a frog deck. Like you could stop a Pot of Avarice. You know, that's like wishful thinking, I guess. Everything else is kind of the same. We did go up to 2 Dust because also Dust Tornado is actually good against the Gigavice plant deck because of the fact that they play a bunch of equips. You could also, if they go turn 1 or you went first at Dust and they go Giga Plant in Supervise, you could just hit the Supervise and it doesn't get to special summon anything if they don't have anything else in the graveyard. So it's okay. But again, this card is generally trash against Frogs. So that's kind of the conundrum we have here with Zombies. You're trying to play a bunch of cards to stop some of your terrible matchups, which is just about everything. Black Wings, you need to have some type of defense against that to stop Royal Oppression. You have Vayu now that's, throwing 1 or 2 Royal Oppressions back in the main, right when we thought it was getting good. They kind of were cutting Royal Oppression, but main decking Deck Devi, so that also hurts. So now Dust also can hit that. It doesn't do anything against a Frog, so you're trying to stop Black Wings and Vayu, but then you have a poorer matchup into the Frogs, which already is just like not good for you generally. And then I didn't know how popular this plant deck was going to be, and I'll tell you, if you're not in Edison War League, you definitely should be in the server anyway, because you can at least watch every replay that takes place, and these are the best players. Every player who's pretty much plays this game at a high level is in War League to some capacity. Whether they play every week or not, that's a different story, but they're usually on a team and they're in the chat and they're watching film. So join the Discord server. It's in the description. Watch high level replays. The bot is pretty much like, it's on point, it's taking care of everything, posting all the replays. So it's been good, and that's kind of how I got up to speed. I was watching a lot of film, and there's players there that are just amazing. You watch them play and you're like, it's almost as if they can see your opponent's hand, how well they play. It's just they read everything. It's insane. So anyway, I was watching replays and I was just trying to get a gist of the deck. And again, this is what we decided. We also went with 1 Book of Moon. Book of Moon also can turn off a lot of the combos. It can turn off some of the Frog combo deck. It can also turn off the plant deck. So we went with Book of Moon. I don't always play Book of Moon. It's in and out of decks. It was more so in older builds, but we also decided to slim down on D Prisons because of Titanium. I'm not sure it was the right call. So then you make a decision to cut down on D Prisons because the Titanium's running around, and then you play Gladiator Beast like I did, and then you just get steamrolled. So it's kind of, we're in like this situation where if you're playing to anything other than some of the top decks, and then because if you're playing a tier 1 or 1.5 or 2 deck, you usually have to have some type of disruption in the main deck to help even the playing fields against your bad matchups, and doing that generally creates even worse matchups into other decks in that are top of the meta. So it's kind of a real sticky situation. It really comes down to what you end up playing in a tournament. So if you get lucky and you main deck triple Dust Tornado or something, and you play 6 Black Wings, then I guess maybe you're going to be doing well. But if you play 4 Frogs, then you don't get to do anything. So that's just kind of the situation you deal with when you're playing a little bit lower tier deck, because there's a lot of cards that stop this deck. Deck Devi, Royal Oppression, Icarus is brutal to deal with when you have just recruiters, and the deck is rather slow. Frogs can kind of take advantage of that unless you have the offering to kind of explode. So there's a lot of decks that exploit zombies, and then if you're main decking cards to try to help those matchups, you can only do so much, and then you need bracket luck. So side deck we'll focus on really quickly. I think DD Crow is probably still needed now because that Frog deck is like even more toxic if you don't have anything to stop Pot of Avarice or the Fishborg. I feel like 2 or 3 is probably the number right now. Dinah is always decent. Pretty much have to play that to stand a chance. Kaiku is also good against a lot of the, it could be decent against the Fish deck if you actually get the attack off. We end up going with the Morphing Jar number 2. So I quickly saw in some of the Discord discussion that Morphing Jar number 2 is kind of busted against an established plant board, because it does not send, it sends the synchros back to the synchro deck like Stardust and the Power Tool, and Titania will go back to the deck, and then they have to hit let's say they had 4 monsters, they have to actually have to hit that many monsters off the top of their deck, and so I believe they can actually deck out based on their monster count. So this card's actually a pretty clean out to the Gigaplant deck. And shout out to Sizzle, because I also watched his video, and he had made a video, Sackface, about cards that are good against the deck, and I directly went on there and I was like, okay, Morphing Jar number 2. So it's kind of niche. Obviously, it's only that one matchup, but I think you need something. I was nervous. I was going to play 37 of these decks. So we ended up going with more Book of Moon in the side deck. And the reason is because a lot of those plant decks are side decking Royal Decree. And now, as you can see, we have 16 traps in the deck. And if a Royal Decree flips the board, you're just going to lose. So we decided that we could side deck down on some of the traps, like Dust Shoot, which is pretty bad against that deck. They only play like 10 monsters. Maybe some of the slower cards, like Call of the Haunted. And you can put in a double Book of the Moon and have a little bit more defense. Heavy, we always side heavy because we don't main it, which is actually like really good sometimes, because if you main deck this card or just Spell and Trap Hate in general, it doesn't do a lot into some matchups. Frog specifically, even like the plant deck, it's okay against, but so it's almost like I feel like this card may even be better just like side decking sometimes, because then you can like, okay, I'm going second, I can bring Heavy Storm in and then like hit a big heavy. This just might be my brain and not real reality, but it definitely comes in and out depending on the matchup and going first or second. Vortex just really good right now to try to out frogs and all that. Zombie World, so this is another card that actually, like zombie decks, I feel like we should be side decking this card right now, because if any deck can take advantage of it, it's zombies. It stops the whole plant deck pretty much right where in its tracks, and also you can do stupid stuff like Ill Blood out a Titanial. I've never done it, but theory that could happen. Also, I think it could be like okay against Dragon Turbo unless they have the heavy. So there's some other applications for this card. I'm not going to say it's world changing, but it depends on how popular the plant deck gets. This card's probably pretty good. Chain Disappearance was like a last second throw in. Somebody, I can't remember their name, sorry, had messaged me on Discord and was like they were testing Chain Disappearance. I guess it's pretty good to hit the Substitute if they don't actually like use Pario and hit Substitute. If they like tribute something else, you can clear all the Substitute, which is pretty much the main card in the Frog deck, because they tried to OTK with like a million, going off with sub and bringing out the Death Frog. So I don't know. This card probably needs a little bit more practice. Dust Tornado, probably don't need 3 to be honest with you, but what else are you going to throw in here, I guess? Could be Master Restrict. And Trap Hole against Blackwing, you just need a little bit more help sometimes. And then a Trap Stun. Extra deck is pretty standard, aside from the fact that we went with Red Dragon Archfiend. Also is a clear out too, because what they'll do is they'll put Titanial in defense, so they don't like run into Mirror Force or anything like that. And Red Dragon Archfiend is a clear out to a lot of the board. Also the fish deck, or the frog deck, or whatever the heck we're calling it. So we went with Red Dragon Archfiend. Again, if you felt strongly about not playing it, I wouldn't care either way. So that's the deck. Was it over? I did not do very good this event. I think I went 1 and 2. And we're going to quickly cover my first round match. So we'll get into it. I played against Blackwing, Vayu, Gladiator Beast, and at that point I was like, I'm just not going to do this. I'm not going to try to play another 5 rounds and win out to go 5 and 2. It's just not worth it. Because I'm probably not going to top losing round 1 and 3 or something like that. So this is round 1, and also I'm playing on an iPad for round 1 and taking care of my children. I just needed to wait for help in terms of taking care of the kids, and I could get back on my main computer. So playing on a tablet is like impossible sometimes, so I keep that in mind. I think we're just gonna show our hand so you can see kind of what I'm thinking, and again, I'll tell you there's a million different plays you can make here, and I'm not gonna tell you I played the greatest, but we'll take a look here. So I don't know what I'm playing against, but the hand is like okay. This card is always glued to your hand. That's one of the reasons why I go in and out with this. It's like the Titanial of zombies. And so we're just going to set here, and we say go. We don't even have to really set the D prison. Probably could keep it. So at this point, they're just passing, and I'm like, okay, well, I draw a turtle. There's no real reason for me to, I could set turtle, but then like now if they summon trooper and then torrential, like I'm getting blown out or something. So let's just poke and then see what's going on here. And, we obviously, I guess we play into that anyway, but we have the Book of Life play, so that makes things a little bit better. So also the 1400 is really relevant with, excuse me, my nose is itchy. It's really relevant with offering zombies because this deck has a hard time OTKing from 8,000. Like it can do it, but it needs specific cards like Dark Arm usually to do it. But if they hit into that 6,000 range, the OTK lines are much easier, obviously. But it's also, first off, the lines are less complicated, number one. Number two, when you're playing this deck a lot of the time, you're throwing stuff out there on the field, like a Gaia Knight or a Flameville, the Flameville Synchro. You're throwing those things out there sometimes just to bait certain cards. And if you don't see those cards, sometimes you're like, well, this is suboptimal, but now that they're not there fishing for certain stuff, you can actually still push, you can OTK. So that happens sometimes. Like you're making very, subpar synchros, but you're trying to get cards from your opponent and they're not giving them to you. So you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to try to win the game now. Now, when you're trying to go for 8,000, it's very specific. You usually you need to have Goyo Guardian, you need to have Brio, so you have to use those high value cards. And then if you're playing into any amount of back row, they punish you if they have real stuff. So, but being at like 6,600 is pretty easy to OTK with even subpar synchros, usually. So here we go. I still don't know what I'm playing against. They're setting a million things. I do draw a Solid Road, which makes me happy. And we just swing here. Now we know we're on Blackwing, so I wish this was there. And luckily they don't hit our, I guess they could have hit both the recruiters, and that would have been rough. And now we see a Whirlwind. So now things are getting pretty scary. So now I know I'm playing against Blackwing. They have a bunch of back row face down. I don't know what they could have. I know they have one less Icarus, but probably a Royal Oppression, I'm guessing, something like that. Deep Prison. The only good thing here is that they didn't have a big monster to hit with the Whirlwind. They only brought out the Blizzard. So here's where we could have done something different here. This is the first real thonk of the game. So I have a couple options. I don't Caius here. I just keep the Pyramid Turtle on the field, and I can keep it set and say go. Okay. Which is not a terrible play, hoping that they attack it, number one. The problem is, if they hit a big Blackwing off the board, Bora, Sirocco, Shura, because they could Sirocco summon here and I can't stop it. They don't know that, but they're going to go off with Whirlwind and it's going to get out of hand pretty quickly. Or they could, if they Icarus, which is unlikely now because they've already used one. So I would have Road. That would be ideal for me, but it's probably not going to happen. They've already used one of these. Or I could try to switch the turtle to attack and ram into the Blizzard to try to grab a Goblin Zombie that then tribute for Caius. But that also plays into Mirror Force and Deep Prison, and they have 3 face down. So my thought is if I pass, they can make a synchro here, hopefully attack the turtle, which may or may not happen. That's number one. Number two, they could summon a Bora and search, and then they can make Blizzard, and I'm probably just going to lose the game, or be in such a position where I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot because now Pyramid Turtle's going to be returned to my hand if they use a Blizzard effect, and Book of Life is dead, and I just can't play. So I decided to go with the option of let's slam Caius and at least out the Whirlwind right now. And, there's probably a bottomless, but maybe not. If they have Icarus, then I at least have the Road. And, if they Icarus here, I probably would just win. So I go with that option. Again, I don't know if the play is right or not. I don't think switching turtle to attack position is the right play into 3 back row. I think maybe the right play, knowing what I know now, which is a way easier to tell, is probably just leave the turtle in defense and pass and make them attack it or hope that they attack it. Because at this point, they do have the bottomless, and our Starlight Road is not live, and they're just beating us down with little creatures here, little monsters, and we're gonna draw. The hand again is not terrible. I guess I could have some plays. So here's this Dark Bribe. So right now, that's the problem with these traps, and not real cards a lot of the time. And now at this point, I'm like, well, if they have the Deep Prison, I lose the game here. I still have the Book of Life play, but so we're going to summon the Sangan and swing over that, and then we're going to try to Book of Life and bring out the turtle. So overall, I think we're sitting pretty good. We have a Road for any Icarus, Torrential Mirror Forces, anything crazy. We have a Bribe for backup, and they're on 2 darks. So I think we're okay. So slam MST, which is I don't know if that's even the right play. Maybe it is because this card wasn't real. I don't know. There's a lot of draw traps that are around still, but they're playing themselves. So they do have another Icarus, which is crazy. And I Starlight Road here, so I'm still feeling fine. And then they have the brain control on top of that. And it looks like it's going to be game here because they're just going to pitch their last 2 cards and they win. So this game here was kind of like we lose the brain control, but we could have made a decision a bit differently on that pyramid turtle play, which would have affected the game likely because of not tributing for Caius there. So probably wasn't the ideal play. I'm not entirely sure, but playing into 3 back row like that with a whirlwind, you're just like a sitting duck at that point. You kind of have to do something, and that was a choice we made that day. So I get to go first, which makes things a little bit easier than the first game. Hand is pretty good, not the worst. So we're just going to set it all. Like, if they have heavy, then we'll just bribe and, hope they don't. So at this point here, I have a dust for potential royal oppression, which is good. I have the bribe for anything else. I think we just slam it here and start putting some pressure on the board. Like, you can't let let Blackwing sit around. They're just going to accumulate cards and going to OTK in one turn. So this is one of these examples where we throw out a piece of crap and see if they do anything with it, and they didn't. And so I'm like, okay, so what are these 3 back row? Like, you don't bottomless here. Maybe they know that's what I'm trying to have them do. They don't oppression here, so I'm like, is it Mirror Force? Is it D Prison? Or is it an Icarus? Maybe Icarus DDV. Like, that's kind of what you're thinking about there, maybe. At this point, I just swing, and then that goes through too. So now I'm like confused. I'm like, okay, what are these 3 back row? Maybe they're just not doing anything with it yet. So I don't decide to ladder up here into Stardust. I say I'm going to try to be greedy. I have Mirror Force if they try to attack. If they try to Icarus off of that, I can Dark Bribe, and I want to try to OTK next turn with the Goblin Zombie, possibly with the Diva. So now I'm looking, and I say, okay. I have a few options here. This stuck, and this is the pivotal turn right here, and I don't even realize it. I can ladder up into Stardust and maybe wait another turn, play a little bit slower, Stardust, and kind of set up a Goblin play with the Book of Life. And for next turn to guarantee game, I could summon Goblin here and synchro into Brio to try to win the game right now. The problem is that's into triple back row. If he has Royal, or if they have Royal Oppression, I dust. So I have an out there. If they have Torrential or Bottomless, I don't get Prio because it'll be over the Goblin Zombie. So we have to keep that in mind. So I think I just choose to say, you know what? They're not doing a whole lot here. Maybe that's just a value. So I synchro into Stardust. They do have Royal Oppression. So I have the dust. They have Solemn, and they have Bribe. So I bribe. This is Torrential. So hypothetically, I could have actually gone for game. If I summon the Goblin and Synchro, they probably don't Royal Oppression there. That's the problem. If they Torrential there, I don't get priority with the Brio, and then I would Dark Bribe, and they would Solemn, and they would still have Royal Oppression for backup, and my board would be cleared. If I summon Mizuki and Synchro with Diva, which is never going to happen, you're not doing that there. You would get Prio with the Brianak, and then you could pitch back row, pitch cards to hit the back row. So ultimately here, the choice is, do I make Stardust and try to set up game for next turn, or do I just go for game? But the decision is, do they flip Royal Oppression, or do they flip Torrential on the Brio? And if they flip Torrential on the Brio, then I lose there. But if they flip Royal Oppression, then we have this situation here. So kind of where we are right now, I guess. And someone, I don't think they can chain to the Stardust there anyway. I don't think this matters here. We just negate it anyway with Stardust, and then we go. So at this point, they're at 2,300 life. I am at full life. I have a Mirror Force with a Stardust, so they only have 1 Dark in Graveyard, so Dark Arm's not live. Blizzard is technically not live. Next turn, I am guaranteed game because I am able to Book of Life out the Goblin and synchro into Brio and just win the game. So I just need to not die this turn. And so they need some combination of like Brain Control, Blizzard, Slam Bora, Slam Dark Arm. And let's show you. They have exactly that. So playing a bit conservative here cost us the game because they had every card that we could not have them have. So they were able to do the whole... Now, if this is like literally Kalut, it doesn't matter because they can't get the special summon, but they had the Bora. And then they slam Dark Arm and they just win the game. So they actually OTK'd us from 8,000 life, and that was it. So there wasn't a line. There was a line there, and you guys can like pause the game and look at it more. I'm sure that you'll be able to figure it out. That if we went for the Brio play and like tried to kill them or OTK them from 5,400, I think we can get there, but it depends on how they interact with the cards. And again, summoning Mizuki and synchroing with Mizuki is probably not going to be the case. I guess we could Stardust negate, and then we're not going to be able to OTK anyway at that point if we do that to negate the bottomless. So what I'm saying is we either that one specific turn we either try to go for game, and I don't think we get there. But sometimes you're just going to lose games like this. Like, what am I supposed to do? They have Brain, they have Dark Arm, they have the exact cards they need at that time. Like, if they literally just set 2 back row and pass, I win the game. So I decided to play a bit slower there and did not try to play into 3 back row, and they had the out. So that was my round 1. So there was some definitely select choices in game 1 that we could have done with the turtle, and then game 2 here with trying to OTK or try to go for game, because you're playing against Blackwing, maybe you just got to slam it. But anywho, that was a quick video for today. Please join the Edison War League server if you guys want to see some cool action. Show up to the monthly. It's next month, usually the first Sunday of March. The flyers at the beginning of the video. And again, I'm really busy right now. I know I post like 1 video a month at this point. I'm trying to, when I think of an idea, if you guys have any ideas of videos you want to see, if you want to see more gameplay of me messing up, that's great too. I can show you some of that. But my next tournament I'm going to be in person other than the monthlies, will be in May. I'm going to be going to YCS Rhode Island and playing in the Ultimate Time Wizard there. So I look forward to seeing whoever else is able to go. And with that being said, I'll see y'all on the next one.